Good morning, guys. Hope y'all are doing well. Well, today is the first, episode of Myth Mondays. And I wanted, let y'all know this was not an original idea. I do watch a girl named Bailey Sarian. She does this series called Murder, Mystery, and Makeup Mondays. And I'm a sucker for true crime stories. And I was thinking, well, that would actually be pretty cool, but I'm also, I'm a sucker for myths and legends and anything paranormal. So, and I think there's so many legends and myths all over the world. And I've always been interested in other people's myths that they grew up hearing. And today, our first myth is based here in Mississippi, my home state. And it's about the three-legged woman. Now, if I sound hoarse and a little groggy, I have not had any sleep. I have been up all night, so I've been up for almost 24 hours. And my sinuses are messed up, but I am not going to let that slow me down. And yes, I'm in my robe. It's cold this morning. But anyway, three-legged woman. Now, this is a legend based in Natchez, Mississippi, around Natchez Trace area. And I've grown up hearing two different versions, which I'm sure there's probably more versions than this. But the only thing that's the same is the outcome. Okay, so I'm going to start with the legend that I grew up hearing first before I heard the other version. The version I grew up hearing was there was a woman, she was born with a third leg. And all her life she was treated poorly, and people thought she was a witch because she had this third leg. And she wouldn't go out because of it. And the more she became a hermit, the more the rumor spread that she was a witch. And one night, the villagers showed up and they ran her out of her home and burned her alive. And as she was burning, she had said, for all eternity, I will haunt whoever comes to my home. And I will take their soul. Okay? I know that one's short and sweet. The other version I've heard was this girl was born and she wasn't all there, which this still circulates around the whole witch theory behind it. But she was born a little crazy. I say not all there, but she was just crazy. And she was obsessed with this one man. And she was in love with this man, and he refused her. So one night she went to his house and drugged him and brought him to her home. And to make sure nobody could have him, she killed him. And her being what she was, cuckoo, she took one of his legs, and sewed it onto herself. And this is around the time period, like I said, witches was really prominent. And by the way, the house that I'm talking about is a real house. It's just nobody really knows the real story behind the house and where this legend came from. So I need to do more research on that, because now it's got me thinking. I want to know. But anyway, and people found out what she had done. And they were scared of her. And the women didn't want their husbands or their sons to go out, out and mingle, just in case she sets her eyes on one of them and does something to them. So, needless to say, again, villagers went to her home, and she could see the flicker of the fires from their torches. So they dragged her out of her home and burned her in the front yard. Now, that I have heard that version again before, but the ending was she was hung. So, there's so many different versions of this legend, And growing up, I was so afraid of the three-legged woman. as every child in Mississippi has heard the legend, you know. And even then, she's like, for all eternity, I will hunt whoever comes to my home. Now, the same outcome for every part of the legend all leads to one thing. You go to her home and you flash your headlights 3 times. Now, why 3 times is because they say that the villagers, when they were coming upon her home with the wind, it made the torches flicker. And they flickered 3 times. So that's where that comes in. But you flash your headlights. And the thing is, you've got to do it anywhere between midnight and 3 o'clock. Nobody is really certain about what exact time. It ranges from midnight to 3 o'clock. So, but when you flash your headlights 3 times, you sit there and you wait until you see the front door open. And once the front door opens, you've got to go. You've got to go. And legend says that if she beats you to the train tracks, she takes your soul. But if you beat her to the train tracks, she will kick a dent with that 3rd leg into your vehicle, and you will never be able to get that dent out. Now, I've heard stories from people about people they've known who has done this, and they come home with a dent in their vehicle, and they can't get it out. And there's a lot of them stories. Now, if they're true, I have no idea. Like, we had this family friend that told us that he did it, and he had a dent in his vehicle, and he couldn't get out. So, and he ended up selling that car because he could not get that dent out. If that's true, I don't know. This friend is a little iffy. He's not really a family friend anymore, but, you know. So, that's legend of the 3-legged woman. And the creepy thing is either way it goes, you know, she had 3 legs, and back in those days, if you were different, you were a witch. So, and to hear that there's a curse on the place, which all of us believe there is. I haven't been out there, and I refuse to go out there. And I'm one of those, I love paranormal. And I love checking out legends, and I love reading about myths. But that is one place I refuse to go. I have been asked to go with people, and I'm like, I'm not going. I'm not that stupid. I'm stupid, but I'm not that stupid. Just the idea of knowing that there's a chance that this could be real, which all legends and myths are based off of real events that have happened in the past. It's just over the centuries and the years, it's got distorted and changed, and that's how they become legends. But just on the off chance that this is real, I don't want to take that chance of possibly losing my soul, you know what I mean? And it's creepy. It's a creepy legend. I mean, and then we have this other legend out of Aberdeen, Mississippi, which is a very old town in the state of Mississippi. It is so old that there's pictures of old saloons and stuff, and where they had the posts for you to hitch your horses to and stuff like that. So it's really old, and you can tell by all the antebellum homes. And this legend, now, I can't remember the name of the old lady, but everybody has a different name for her. But she was a real woman, and her tombstone it's actually like an above ground tomb in the old Aberdeen cemetery. And everybody in Aberdeen knows this story, because it's one of them local legends that you're out after a certain time on a certain day, she's gonna get you, you know. So, and anyway, I can't remember her name. To the story, she was a mean woman. And every night she would sit on her porch and she would just rock every single night. And anybody of color, other than white folks, she would shoot at them. she would throw things at them. She would growl at them. And the people got tired of her, what do you want to call it? Mistreating them. Being mean and just being a cruel old lady. Which the story behind her being mean was that she grew up in the time when she was a child. Her parents were slave owners. And so she grew to know them as slaves and do as they're told. And they're lower than whites and, the lowest of the low. And as she got older, of course, Civil War come around and, slaves were set free and it was made to be illegal. So she was a very bitter old lady because she lost everything except for her house that was in her family. So she would sit on her porch and she would cuss and she would holler and she'd throw things, she'd shoot at people. And the people got fed up, and as the legend goes, that there was voodoo around that time in Aberdeen. And they put a voodoo curse on her. And every day she got weaker and weaker and weaker. And the doctor couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. There was nothing they could find. So they just she just gave up on trying to figure out what was wrong. And then one night, which, as I said, the story varies from person to person, but it all is basically the same. The story I've heard, it was in October. I don't remember the exact day, but it was a day in October, a night in October. She just died, sitting in her rocking chair. And come morning, people noticed she was still in her rocking chair. And she was pale. She wasn't moving. She wasn't rocking. So they called sent somebody out to get the doctor and the police. Thinking, hey, there's something wrong. She's not out here hollering, cussing. She's not rocking. Something's wrong. And they get there, and she was dead, and she was cold as ice. And her death grip was so strong, they could not remove her from her rocker. So they had to build an upright tomb to put her in. And they say every year on the anniversary of her death, you will see her out there in the cemetery rocking. So it's just, there's a lot of legends and myths around here. And I'm sure there's a lot where y'all are from. So if you have any myths or legends from where you were from and you want them to be told, hit me up on Twitter. I will put my Twitter link down below, and y'all can message me on Twitter, and I will be more than happy to tell your legend. And if you know multiple stories, multiple sides of the legend, include that in. To me, it's interesting because behind these legends, there's some truth. Now, as for this woman, no one really knows the real story behind how the legend got started. I've tried looking into it. There's no paperwork about this woman or anything like that. And on her tombstone, it does have the woman's name. But like I said, the legend varies from person to person what her name was. Because it's hard to read her tombstone because they have it blocked off from the rest of the cemetery, which is odd. They do have the Confederate soldiers out there. Yes, they got their own little fence, but they're not completely blocked off from the rest of the cemetery. She is towards the middle to back section of the old Aberdeen Cemetery, and they've got a fence that goes all the way around it, but the fence is so far apart. The front side is so far from the front of her tomb that you can't really read it. And her tomb is so old that a lot of that is faded and corroded away. So, me and my sisters tried. We've tried to look up where it came from, where it originated from. Couldn't find anything. We couldn't find any information on the real woman when we were able to finally see her name, which that's been many, many years ago. So, I mean, and if you have, once, like I said, you send me your legends and your myths, and I'll be more than happy to tell them. And if you know multiple versions of that legend, send that to me. And if you find a link to the origin of that legend and myth, that would be even awesome. And if you can't, I will try and do my best to dig and find where it originated from. So, guys, that is our 2 myths and legends for our very first Myth Mondays. So, guys, I will see you guys in the next one, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be looking forward to hear about your legends and myths. So, bye.